It looked like almost feral animals. It was terrible.
16 children, a filthy house, and a secret investigation. We're learning more about the Cers family.
Court document, Venton County, Ohio. Case number sealed in part. 16 counts of child endangering filed against 4 adults who share 2 surnames and 1 address. That's the paperwork. Here's the picture underneath it. A 12 by 12 room, the size of a modest home office, that 16 children lived, ate, and slept inside of for years. 4 doors down from neighbors who apparently never called anyone.
It's been nearly a week since sheriff's deputies and state agents went into a home in rural Ohio to execute a search warrant and found 16 children in a room that was described as filthy. Those 16 children are the daughters and sons of Gary Lee Cers Jr. and Elizabeth Cers. They are facing 16 counts of child endangering, and Gary Jr.'s parents, Gary Cers Sr. and Christina Cers, are facing the same charges. The state's attorney general, the Venton County prosecutor, and the sheriff described the conditions in the home as filthy, with feces and bugs in the 12 by 12 room where they say these children were kept.
Before we go deeper into what the records actually show, make sure you're subscribed to the Crime Infinity, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. Here's the visual you need to hold on to for the rest of this video. 16 children. 1 room the size of a parking space. That ratio? That's the entire case in 1 image. Everything else is detail.
Some of these children couldn't even speak. Yeah, so I mean, we're talking. This is very. It was terrible. I mean, it looked like almost feral animals. It was terrible. So when we're talking reading and writing and education, we're talking a whole nother level of expectations here.
Gary Cers Jr. and Elizabeth Cers married in West Virginia in March of 2008. Not Ohio. Ohio requires you to be 18 or 17 with parental consent and a stack of paperwork most families never bother with. West Virginia at the time didn't ask as many questions. Elizabeth was 15. Gary was 18. Court records show their first child arrived that same year, in May. Then court records show a child nearly every year after that. 2008, 2009, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2016, 2017, 2019, 2020, and then twins arriving in 2022, 2024, and 2025. 17 years. 1 filthy room at the end of it.
She had children in 2008, 2009, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2016, 2017, 2019, 2020, and then twins, it appears, in 2022, 2024, and 2025.
Nobody asked why. That's the first turning point in this story, and it's not the arrest. It's the marriage certificate. A 15-year-old girl crossing a state line to marry an 18-year-old man, and a system built specifically to prevent that kind of thing simply not catching it. If Ohio's marriage laws had applied instead of West Virginia's, does any of the next 17 years happen the way it did? According to the sheriff's office, the Cers family moved between counties multiple times over the years and spent time out of state in Wisconsin.
Law enforcement said the Cers moved from county to county and even spent time in Wisconsin. And I've learned that Children's Services may have visited the family in one Ohio county, but then the Cers moved, I'm told, to keep the children from being taken away from them. The Cers, according to the sheriff, have lived in the house on Omer Street in Venton County for the last 4 years. Elizabeth Cers doesn't appear to have social media.
Multiple family members, in public statements, have suggested that Children's Services opened contact with the family at least once before the family relocated. Whether that relocation was coincidental or deliberate is not something any court filing has confirmed. What is confirmed by the sheriff's own account is that the family had lived at the Omer Street address in Venton County for the 4 years immediately preceding the arrest. Nobody asked why. Elizabeth's own brother, in a public social media post following the arrest, described his sister's situation using the word indoctrination and stated that everyone in the family already knew about the number of children involved.
Just wrapped her life up due to indoctrination. It is 100% real. 20 kids and younger than me. The math equals immature piece of you-know-what man involved. I met this dude a couple of months ago, shook my hand like a baby would, super soft hands, definitely never worked a day in his life. I should have took him out that night. I was thinking about it, but my sister, I was happy to see. Been 15 years. You lost touch with your family, followed another. Look what happened. Now, I reached out to Jeremy Russell, but at the time of this recording, I haven't heard back from him. On Sunday, Jeremy Russell then wrote, "Got a lot of Facebook investigators, LOL. You're in for a ride. I've been telling you all. My remorse? I don't care. I really don't. That's sad. I tried many times. Ask my ex. She knows. I was the one harassing. I love my sister. However, everyone knew about it. I told everyone. Welfare supporters to the maximum. So state knows something. I don't get it."
He didn't specify what everyone knowing actually meant in practice, whether that meant knowing 16 children existed or knowing the conditions those children were living in. Those are two very different kinds of knowing, and the gap between them is where a lot of this case is going to live once it reaches a courtroom. Here's where the story gets complicated instead of simple, which is usually where the truth actually is. The sheriff's office and the state attorney general described the room where the children were found using words like filthy, with references to feces and insects, and one widely repeated comparison to livestock conditions. But Dorian Ball, the attorney representing the children's grandfather, Gary Sr. Sr., has publicly pushed back on that characterization.
Dorian Baum. He is an attorney representing Gary Cers Sr., that is the grandfather in this family. Dorian, thanks so much for coming on. You haven't met with your client yet. Tell me a little bit about why, and have you even been able to speak with Gary Cers Sr. on the phone?
Yeah, thanks. Again, thanks for having me. So, unfortunately, because of the holiday weekend, the jail was actually not permitting people to come in and visit with inmates. That includes attorneys. So the first opportunity, and that actually includes today as well.
His argument is not that the home was clean. His argument is that dirty and criminal are not legally the same thing, and that the state so far has produced what he called only a fraction of its actual evidence. That's not spin. That's a real legal distinction, and it's the one this entire case will eventually turn on. Ohio's second-degree felony child endangering statute requires more than an unkempt home. It requires a substantial risk to a child's health or safety. A dirty house is a housing problem. A child endangering felony is a legal threshold. The prosecution has to prove the second one, not just describe the first one. At the same time, court records confirm that at least 2 of the 16 children were transported to a Level 1 trauma center, the highest tier of emergency care that exists, reserved for the most severe injuries a hospital can receive. The remaining children were treated and released from multiple area hospitals before being placed into foster care.
The children range in age from 1.5 to 18. 2 were taken to Level 1 trauma centers. The others were treated and released from a number of hospitals and then placed in foster homes. The home on Omer Street is roped off by crime scene tape to keep people out.
Whatever the legal threshold ends up being, that detail alone tells you this wasn't simply about mess. Nobody asked why. Then there's the detail that scrambled the entire public narrative in the last week. The claim that the older children couldn't read, write, or spell their own names. Multiple relatives, including an uncle named Joey Russell, have publicly disputed that characterization, posting what he describes as social media messages sent by his nieces discussing a past relationship.
Messages between her and her ex-boyfriend. He says they had to break up because of her neighbor Mike. He sent proof of everything. The lies need to stop. The speculation needs to stop. Clearly the neighbors knew. Clearly she could read, write, and speak. We just want the damn truth. Praying day and night for my nieces and nephews.
If accurate, that would mean at least some of the older children had literacy, had internet access, and had enough independence to maintain an online presence, which raises its own uncomfortable question. If they had phones or devices capable of posting to social media, who provided them? And why didn't any of the adults around them use those same devices to ask for help? That's the part of this case that isn't settled yet, and probably won't be for a long time. Was there a device? Was there access? Was there a moment, any moment, across 17 years, where an outside adult had a clear opportunity to intervene and didn't take it? The 4 defendants, Gary Cers Jr., Elizabeth Cers, Gary Cers Sr., and Christina Cers, have all pleaded not guilty to the child endangering charges. Gary Cers Jr. additionally faces 4 misdemeanor counts of public indecency, tied to alleged incidents court documents placed between May 23rd and May 31st, prior to the search warrant being executed.
Also faces 4 misdemeanor counts of public indecency. Court records state that Gary Cers Jr. did recklessly expose his private parts under circumstances in which his conduct was likely to be viewed by an affront of others who are in Gary Cers' physical proximity and who are not members of his household. Now, these alleged incidents happened 4 times between May 23rd and May 31st, according to court documents. Gary Jr. has pleaded not guilty to the...
All 4 remain held on $300,000 bonds in a regional jail in Southeast Ohio. The underlying search warrant that first brought investigators to the property remains sealed, and law enforcement has only described it publicly as connected to a separate, parallel investigation, details of which have not been released.
The sheriff isn't commenting on what crime law enforcement was investigating when they went to the home on June 30th to execute that search warrant, and the documents related to it are sealed. It's only been referred to as a parallel investigation. But there are a lot of...
That sealed warrant is arguably the most important document in this entire case, and right now, none of us are allowed to read it. What we do know is this: the case still has to clear a grand jury before any of these 16 counts survive as formal indictments. Attorney Bal has already pointed out that complaints filed at the arrest stage frequently get revised, upgraded, or reduced once they reach that next legal stage. The original complaint against this family, in fact, started at 17 counts before being amended down to 16. That's not proof of innocence. It's not proof of guilt either. It's simply where the legal process actually stands right now, underneath all the language being used to describe it in public. Nobody asked why. Not the neighbors, not the extended family who say they knew, not the systems that had contact with this family before they relocated. 17 years, 11 documented births, 4 counties, 1 sealed warrant, and 16 children who are now, for the first time in their lives, somewhere outside that room. If you want to look at this yourself instead of taking anyone's framing for it, including ours, the Venton County Clerk of Courts maintains the public docket for this case under the child endangering complaint filed against all 4 defendants. The amended complaint, the bond amounts, and the arraignment record are all part of that public file. Go look at what's actually in it, and then answer this in the comments. At what point in this timeline, the 2008 marriage, the reported contact with Children's Services, or the years of relocations after, do you think intervention should have happened and could have actually worked? If this case matters to you, hit like. Share this with someone who needs to see how these charges actually work before the headlines get to them first. Subscribe to the Crime Infinity and turn on notifications, because we'll be back the moment this case moves to a grand jury.